do want this to be an interactive session. Just a little bit about Framingham State. We will celebrate our 175th anniversary this year. Framingham State's a public university that was established by Horace Mann in 1839 as America's first public teacher preparation school. So the fact that we're using mobile is really exciting to us. Framingham State offers undergraduate and graduate programs encompassing the arts and sciences and professional studies, and we have over 6,500 graduate and undergraduate students. We're committed to excellence in an environment that supports collaborative learning. So again, mobile really fits into our model. We are one of the first state schools in Massachusetts to adopt the laptop program and online learning as well. Mobile technology is culturally accepted as a natural extension to that learning environment. And this is really where our story begins. And where we really want to start is by hearing from everyone here. So if you can go ahead and use the polling options to share when you last checked your mobile device. Select A if it's within the last 5 minutes, B within the last 2 hours, C within the last 2 days, or D last week. And we'll give you just a couple of minutes to answer. And we can see that a number of you have checked it just in the last few minutes. So that's great. So hopefully you'll put them away now and listen to us. But we do get a sense that mobile is of interest to everyone here. Okay. So mobile is certainly infiltrated our personal lives, and we could see that from the chat numbers going up. It's on our campuses as well. So during this presentation, we're going to talk to you about our challenge, our approach, our success stories, and the lessons we have learned. And by the end, you'll be able to take away, we hope, some tips to make this yours. So our mobile challenge began in the spring of 2011 when biology professor Aline Davis asked the question, what is the impact on learning if iPads are used in the classroom? And just so you know, Aline is pictured up on your screen. She's in the upper right-hand corner wearing the colorful jacket. She had visited a colleague and was intrigued by his iPad. She was interested in exposing her students to this technology in an academic setting and wanted to hear our feedback. So this happened when we sat with her. She was going to use a lockdown browser, and we had come up to make sure all of our students were set. I left the room, and Claire and she plotted, planned, and came away with some initial conversations around mobile and iPad specifically. We originally were thinking about making the load of the students a little lighter, and we started talking about e-text and the possibilities of e-text in the mobile context, and wondered if Kindles would actually work for her. Could this tool or any tool actually reduce the number of textbooks needed by students and make other common academic and serve other academic necessities? Ultimately, we settled on the question you see on the screen, and every professor that you see there has since looked at this question, which Claire will talk about in much more detail. So again, we want to hear from you, and if you have a mobile strategy on your campus, if you can give us a green check mark. If not, then please use a red X. And we can see right now that those of you that do not have a mobile strategy are outweighing those that do by a large number. So I guess that means there's a reason why you came today to listen to our conversation. All right. So thank you for participating in the poll. But I think that we can all realize that society is increasingly mobile, and our students are no exception. I cannot go through the halls on our campus without seeing a student with a mobile device, and oftentimes they're more interested in what's going on with that device than actually looking around them. This also makes sense when you consider that the freshmen who arrive on our campuses were born between 1995 and 1996, our new freshmen, and these students grew up with smart devices and have been connected mobilely probably since they were 12 or 13 years old. So why is this important? It's how students want to be reached, and it's no longer about if we are going to go mobile, it's about when and how. And then what you're seeing on your screen is data from an ECAR study that was done in 2013 to undergraduate students around the conversation of information technology. Based on this research, more than half, 58%, of the students surveyed owned 3 or more internet-capable devices. 76% own a smartphone, which was an increase of 14% from the previous year. 31% owned a tablet, and these are devices they're bringing to school with them, which is an increase of 15%. And 16% came to the campus with an e-reader, which was a 4% increase. So we may be seeing the demise of e-readers and maybe the increase of tablets over the next year. So it'll be interesting to see what ECAR talks about in 2014. The Horizon Report in 2014, as well as ECAR studies, have realized that mobile is more than an access to social media. Their literature observes that institutions must consider the unique value that schools add to a world in which information is everywhere and generally free. So the picture you see on the screen is actually one that Claire took of a student at Framingham State who is very much studying what's going on with her iPads, with her iPhone. I assume it's an iPhone. Tablets, smartphones, and mobile apps have become too capable, too ubiquitous, and too useful to ignore. We were at NERCONF this week, and one instructor in a session talked about using an iPad as the metaphor was in place of his chalk, and that stuck with us as well. The mobile devices embody the governance of several technologies, the convergence of several technologies that lend themselves to educational use, including electronic book readers, annotation tools, applications for creation and composition, and of course social networking. From ECAR, mobile computing has the potential to put learning into the hands of students all the time, anywhere they are, on their own terms. And we've discovered this as well at our own institution. So as technology use and availability increases, new and innovative tools have become a part of the university's educational system. With mobile, for us, there was no strategic initiative. All of a sudden, they were on our campuses. In the fall of 2013, 95 of our faculty responded to a survey. And when they were asked if faculty allowed their students to use mobile devices on a regular basis in their classes, only 15% said no. Many of them have written policies around the laptops or their tablets, and over 60% of those who responded to the survey had some type of mobile device that they personally owned. Of the faculty who use their mobile devices, many of them are using them as a replacement of their laptop at this point in time. But we're hoping with our innovation grants, which Claire is definitely going to talk about, we'll give you an insight more of how this can be used beyond just using them for Blackboard, their email, or to present their PowerPoints. When faced with an opportunity to innovate, Framingham State in 2011 was like Gilligan. We had no pedagogy, no process, no resources of support. All of a sudden, tablets were here. We needed to design new instructional strategies, improve teaching effectiveness, increase student learning using these tools, and support the projects and find the funding. We did that by coming across, creating a collaborative team, and that collaborative team has since been in place since 2011, and we continue to move forward. So with this, I'm going to turn this over to Claire, who's going to talk about what we've done, and before that, we're going to have one more polling question. Great. So the next poll, and again, this is just to bring in some engagement, is select the ways in which you've implemented mobile learning into your classrooms. Have you had a pilot? Do you have any full program initiatives? Are your faculty having students bring their own devices and use them in classrooms? Or if you have any other ways that you're bringing mobile into your classrooms, please share those in the chat as well. We'll give you just a second to work on that poll. Great, so far we're seeing a lot of small classroom pilots, which is what we have and we're going to share, and BYOD being a lot of our reality and what we're using. Excellent. So over the next few slides, I'm going to be sharing some examples through our grant initiative program of where faculty were innovating and using mobile for student engagement and to increase their learning. Due to the growing trends and opportunities for mobile, this is where iPads came in a lot. If it would have been 10 years ago, it could have been laptops. So I think the big question, again, is it's focused around student engagement. How can we get them more involved in their learning, create deeper learning experiences and opportunities? First, I want to start off by briefly talking about the story that Robin had mentioned that started with Professor Aline Davis. Pictured here is before we established the grant program, before we had mobile policies, before we had our strategies, this is right around the time when Aline had approached us and asked about iPads, and it brought this question to us. So we started simple. We started with a small pilot, buying 20 iPads for her students. And again, this was focused around student engagement, but it was focused around e-text. This is a picture of her neurobiology group, and they all had their iPads. This was at the end of the semester, and they were bringing their iPads to class every day. Based on that first year of this small pilot, we were able to use a lot of her research, and we were able to create a publication through EDUCAUSE review, and this is one of the resources that we'll share out. So if you wanted to see any of that data that she found from student engagement, did the iPads, did they make a difference? Did it benefit their grades? We put all that results up there. We also, based on a lot of their feedback of that first year, the very first thing that was clear and evident was that the students loved Blackboard Mobile. We had just added the building block at the time, and we weren't sure of their responses. That helped to guide our purchasing, and we ended up buying the Blackboard Mobile license for students. That took place that January. We also are Blackboard Collaborate customers, so once they added the building block, we added that as well, so we can have the mobile feature there. And all along with these small pilots that we had in the grants, there was faculty development pieces, and we needed to be able to support them on what they wanted to do with mobile in the classroom. So we started a mobile blog where they can have resources, and that's something we'll share as well. So after the first year of the pilot, we had the grant process. We had a more formalized process, and we had over 9 applicants. And based on that, we selected 3 faculty projects. And again, they were all around mobile technology with the goal of classroom engagement. And so the first one is taking Professor Aline Davis and
So we first used iPads the first year, and which was great. We explored e-text, but a lot of what we experience every day and the students had experienced is they were missing the interaction with documents. They were missing some features because it was an Apple device, and they wanted to know, will it make a difference with what they do if we have them use something like an Android device? So we explored, half the class had Android devices and the other class had iPads, and we were able to really test what they were able to do with the classroom material, with what they were learning, with the devices to see, is it the device that makes the difference or is it the application that makes the difference? Here is pictured some of the different tools that we use. When we looked at the hard copy text, we explored Pearson's platform. We also explored CourseSmart. When we initially tried to have a group to look at e-text on their laptop, but there wasn't enough interest to it. We also ended up purchasing some apps, and with the apps we purchased the iWork suite. So we had, and this before they came preloaded with the iPad, so we had purchased Pages, Keynotes, and Numbers for them as well. And we also purchased iAnnotate. In addition, the following year, she started using more interactive tools like Study Blue that allowed for students to create note cards, share with one another, and also find pre-made note cards. The course that Professor Davis taught was Anatomy and Physiology, so a lot of that memorization was crucial with what they wanted to do. Some of our results were, again, purchasing the Blackboard mobile license. One thing that Professor Davis did is she wanted to have an electronic lab notebook experience. And so we thought about different options. One thing that we all use a lot for note-taking is Evernote. So we decided to go ahead and use Evernote for her electronic lab notebook. And she purchased just one of the Premier upgrades, so that way her students could have, she can create one notebook and allow them to collaborate within that notebook. And so she created the groups and she created different notebooks, and students were able to have an electronic lab using Evernote. And what was wonderful is they could come in at any time, update, take pictures, include video, use Stitch, which is also an Evernote app, and annotate on top of the pictures, showing, when they're looking at the microscope, different cell organisms, and being able to annotate on top, this is the difference between day 1, day 3. And they were able to really take what they were doing and take it to the next level, transform their lab notebook experience, and allow for things that they wouldn't be able to do just with that physical paper and pencil. So that was a really great tool and resource that she was able to use that she's continued on using. We also at the same time we were missing the strategy piece with mobile, so we formed a mobile task force, and that helped a lot to create policies, create some guides, help to create training and documentation around mobile to help support our faculty on campus. And also from within that mobile task force, a mobile web app was created for our campus to address that need of, we have so many students wanting that on-the-go information, and here's how we can give it to them. The second professor that we worked with was Professor Lynn Parker, and she teaches Victorian literature, and her goal was to create an interactive learning environment for her students. She had in the past used a lot of really neat features using wikis within Blackboard and creating environments for their students where they could actually role play within Victorian characters. She wanted to take it to the next step. She felt like she had pushed the bounds of everything she could do and really wanted to see, how can I create this environment and make it a more meaningful experience for her students, again, getting them engaged and really immersed into that Victorian culture. So looking at all that was out there, we decided that the best tool was to use the iPads, because another piece of it is she wanted them to be able to go out into all the amazing places we have in New England and be able to actually see places where Victorian literature, where the artifacts lived or authors wrote, and be able to take pictures and share those in real time with students. So we decided that the iPad was the best platform for that, allowing them to be mobile, to post anywhere they were at. We also, when looking at what was the best environment to have the role-playing experience and to share these images, we decided that Google+, it was right around the time when communities came out, and we decided that that was the best environment for them. We could lock down Google+'s community, have a safe environment for the students. Our whole team in the Education Technology Office tackled all of these projects, and when looking at this, we decided to keep her organized. She used hashtags through the communities when they were posting, and they were really able to do a lot with their experience and share their characters, and everything on Google+ community was all character-based. So whatever their role was, it was all focused on that. So their profile picture, everything they had was all around that. For another piece of what she wanted them to be able to do is she wanted them to be able to dynamically and collaboratively annotate on top of works. In the past, she would post documents in Blackboard and have students annotate, and it was all contained within either their classroom conversations or what the students wrote and posted to her personally in Blackboard. And she wanted to be able to create a deeper learning experience. So based on her needs, we have found a tool called Classroom Salon. It's out of Carnegie Mellon, and it's free, and we had worked with their support to set up the salon. And what it allows you to do is you can upload your piece of work, and you can annotate either privately or you can annotate collaboratively amongst one another and see each other's annotations. There's tagging components. And what this created was an environment where students could really see what are those themes that are sticking out, what are those language components, and dive deeper with their work because it's this experience that the whole class is contributing to. And Professor Parker was also able to do a lot with that as well. And throughout all of this, they were able to they utilized Blackboard Mobile throughout the class. And one component, too, I think we all come across with iPads is the Flash component. Classroom Salon was Flash-based for some of the annotation features, and the students wanted to be able to, again, do it on the go anywhere they were at, utilize the iPad. So through the Puffin browser, that allowed them to access Classroom Salon, use that Flash-based product, and still be able to be anywhere around campus or at the museums or wherever they were studying that piece of work and annotate on top of that. The third project we had was designing for digital e-text. This was with Professor Mark Cody, and he teaches specifically a comics and graphic novels course. And his grand goal was to introduce illustrations to students who are in an area of online books and experiment with the possibilities of storytelling. So he wanted really that real world experience for them, where they're currently in his class drawing, working on their art, and they're starting to bring in components of the computer, but they weren't designing for ebooks. They weren't designing for the market that is increasingly growing, and that they would need experience when leaving the walls of Framingham and getting jobs. They really need that experience. And he also wanted them to be able to take it to a next level and to not just be able to design for an ebook, but be able to make their characters come alive, and include components like interactive pieces where one example he had was there was one of his characters, and all of a sudden the wind blew and her hair moved. So just making those stories come more alive and including audio as well. And he originally, when he approached us with his idea, he wanted them to be able to use the iPad and actually create the ebooks on the iPad, and using different tools and exploring different tools, we discovered that the best experience was really that they were going to create on the Mac, use iBook Author was the first one they tried, and use the iPads for testing that usability, seeing if everything worked, seeing if it really gave that mobile experience, and not just testing what they created, but seeing what else was out there, what's already on the market, what are those best practices. And so the first semester we used iBook Author, and were able to see some of the nice features that it had within it. We quickly realized that this iBook Author was limiting for what he wanted to do, specifically with comics. And but that was great experience for the students, because as learners they were able to see why did this tool, what areas did it work for ebook creation and what areas didn't. And that's a lot throughout all of these grants. Not only are the students get experience with technology, but they're also understanding why would I use this over this, and what's the application, and because of that they were more invested in what they were doing. And so the second semester we decided to use InDesign's folio feature, and this really allowed more for a real-world experience, more of what they're seeing in industry, allowed for a deeper use of some of the tools, and a lot of them are already working in Adobe. So they were able to use the folio feature to add those specific animations and sound effects, or just simple things like images moving amongst one another. So that was last year, and since then we've had another round of grants, and we had selected more grants to fund, and we were also able to reuse some of the previous iPads that we purchased. Again, if you look at these grants that we have art education, communication arts, English, biology, education, and visual media. The one thing they all have in common, which you may not see here, is they all are focused around mobile technology. And again, what they're trying to do is not just use the mobile technology. What they're trying to do is educate art students. They're using computer animation. They're looking at social media. But with the components and the engagement, the iPads and mobile technology are that common vessel that they're using right now. And so these projects are underway, and we're learning a lot of great things from them. And throughout all of last year's grants and this year's grants, assessment is deeply embedded into all of them, so we're learning from them. Are mobile devices helping? Are they assisting them in their learning? Are they actually increasing their engagement in what they're doing? So we're in a third round of grants right now. And those grants, again, the innovation grant opportunity is not limited to mobile, but faculty are the ones that see the impact it has had in their own lives as well as those of their students. The proposals that we've received are looking at students, providing students who are out in the school systems and student teaching with iPads, and doing it in all of our pre-service teacher programs. With this current year, we have a group of students who are teaching art, and one of the apps that they were able to find was something called Palette that enabled the student to actually see the many colors and contours within a person's hand, whereas before they would look at their hands and think that it was one color. And now they recognize that there's much more to a person's hand in terms of color than the flesh that you see. So with the pre-service teachers especially, we're doing a lot with their group and integrating the idea of technology because we know this is how students learn. Claire has a wonderful story
about traveling with her nephew.
I was down in Florida. I'm from Florida, moved up here a couple years ago, still getting used to the winter and really excited for spring. And I was in the car and driving, and my nephew said, Aunt Bear, which is what they call me, can you turn on the Wi-Fi? I had to take a second. I just assumed he had no idea what he was talking about. Well, we can't have Wi-Fi, it's in the car. You know, he's like, oh no, my dad has a hotspot. You just have to flip that button there. What do you need Wi-Fi for? I asked. He's like, well, I have my Kindle. I want to download this app. And so sure enough, I flipped on the hotspot that I didn't even know was in the car and was able to get it on. And thank goodness he could download his app that he needed. But I was a little bit shocked, and even working in education, I didn't know it was that embedded.
So again, we're looking at these grants, trying to decide whether they're scalable. We're also talking to our faculty and our faculty chairs and saying, hey, you need to put this money in your budget to support this, because the innovation grants only get us so far. What it has enabled us to do with mobile is to be better prepared, partly because we've been pushed by the students and also encouraged by these grants. So what are the lessons that we have learned? Well, we've learned that BYOD is a reality. This certainly came out of our mobile task force that Claire had mentioned as well. Around the time that Aline had contacted us, we recognized we did not have policies and procedures in place. We weren't sure. We're not an Apple school, but what do we need to do to prepare? How do we empower our faculty to make sure that they're ready to understand that, great, we were a laptop school, but do we need to say to our students, you need to come to campus with a laptop? Do we need to just tell them exactly what needs to be on that laptop, or can we be more open? And we're tending towards more of a BYOD. We will recommend a laptop, but we're not as prescriptive as we were 10 years ago. Students adopted Blackboard Mobile Learn with no prompting to us. So we're always alert to what they are investigating. So to make sure that, hey, if this is appropriate, not that we want the students to drive the curriculum, but we need to be prepared, especially in education technology. We also know that mobile is convenient. Very often, if I'm checking something personally, I'm more apt to grab my iPad. And fortunately, because we have the grants, we were able to receive some for our own use. But I'm more apt to grab the iPad or take the iPad to a meeting, whereas before I would lug around my heavy laptop.
And one of the findings we found from, again, throughout all the projects we had assessment, and we had focus groups in some of them, and some of the biggest feedback we had is, we asked the question of, what things would you do on the iPad that you wouldn't do on your laptop or on a device? And when the students started talking, they had narrowed it down to, it was things that they could complete in 5 minutes or less, most likely, or something they could do easier on the iPad or on their iPhone. And when I asked them the question, they gave a couple examples, or fitness apps, or being able to check Blackboard more often. I said, well, why wouldn't you do that on the laptop? And it was just that convenience piece. And a lot of them, they wouldn't do certain things just in general unless it was on the iPad, because it was so fast, it was so easy, and by the time you boot up your laptop or you bring it out, then it's not worth it. It's not worth checking Facebook 20 times a day, so maybe they'll only check it 4 or 5, things like that.
Although our audience was checking their mobile devices within minutes. But we also know that mobile is not the only solution, and certainly iPads in particular, or even tablets, are not necessarily a replacement for a laptop. Maybe in 5 years we'll be having a different conversation. What it certainly has also given us is it's given us an opportunity to innovate. When Aline Davis came to us with the question, we did not have a policy or a procedure in place, and we were able to form an internal grant committee who will help vet it, but we were able to use some funds because there were no other funds available on campus, but we were fortunate to have that resource. And it certainly has pushed the envelope for our department to work with others across campus, and that includes the libraries, others in IT. It includes our assessment office. And so we're reaching out and we're pulling in people that in other cases we were not necessarily speaking to them on a regular basis. It's also an opportunity to push forward our own initiative of information literacy and digital fluency. And the piece that we always have to think about is our assessment. We have now 2 years of data, and it's time for us to sit back and to learn some more. So definitely tablets have a role in higher education, but we're still experimenting, and it sounds from many of you that you're probably thinking of it too. Tablets are really in their infancy, but they have already made a huge impact on the way in which some of our faculty are teaching their classes and engaging students in learning. So here are some ways that if you're looking for setting up a tablet initiative, and we certainly want time for conversation too, that you can make this process yours. Having a strong design team, having a group of people who are willing to sit down and not just say, okay, here's some iPads, now go experiment. We've done a lot of work and working together as a team to make sure that you're supported, our faculty are supported. We were fortunate to have internal grant funding, but external resources are also available. So if you need to have some of that seed money, that innovation money, grants are a good place to go. We also were very fortunate at our campus to have upper management, and by that I mean academic affairs, as well as our CIO, be in strong support of this initiative, as is our own president. They understand the value of continuing to have faculty innovate with technology, and mobile seems to be the way to go right now. That cross-functional collaborative team is essential. So we have instructional designers, we have librarians, we have all kinds of roles within the university to make sure that the instructor understands what he's getting into or she's getting into, and also has the team to support them. When we worked with the Victorian Literature faculty member, I was fortunate in my group, we have a number of English majors, so they were able to use their own experiences and bring them to the table. But the librarians as well have been able to build out LibGuides and other resources to support what's going on in the classroom. The mobile task force, again, that if you do not have policies and procedures, getting together that cross-functional team and think about what are the strategic questions on your campus that you need to consider to make this a success. And just getting a group of people in the room to sort of figure those out was most helpful. We're always reaching out to professional organizations, looking at the e-car research, going to NERCOM, speaking at Blackboard World, sharing ideas with others. We were fortunate to meet another Blackboard user last year when we did a pre-conference seminar. His name is Jason Rohde, R-H-O-D-E, and he has some phenomenal resources around this topic as well. But talking to others, and we certainly want to have conversations with all of you.
And of course, with all this, we're supporting faculty and what they're doing, and not just the faculty with the grants or the pilots that we're doing, but in general. So around the time that Aline had approached us, we saw a big influx on mobile on campus. And that's right around the time that the iPads came out, and that's a big part of it. And but not just with students, but with faculty. Departments were going off and buying their own iPads, and just with extra funds. And so we did several different things to help support what both the students and faculty were doing. We do have a blog site, which I think we'll have a couple minutes in a little while to maybe take you out to that site and show you some of the resources. But on there we have app guides for both students and faculty. We kept it really simple with here are maybe 12 apps that we think are worthwhile of exploring, and of course Blackboard Mobile and Collaborate, the ones that we personally use on our campus are listed there along with our FSU Go app, and then we're able to suggest some more general apps as well. On there we also created a quick guide, and we had a great graphic designer help us with that. And just a one-page, this is the iPad, this is a mobile device. We also created them for Android device as well. For new users, how to set up their email and simple formats, so feel free to use and take them. On that site, you'll also find an infographic based on that first year of grants, with a lot of the information I told you with some of the specifics on what tools did they use, what were their goals. So that's there for reference as well. One thing that we also found to be helpful when talking to our faculty, because as Robin said, mobile devices, the iPad, it's just your new chalk, right? So getting them to think about how can they transform what they're doing, how can they really think about their goals and objectives and use mobile technology to take it to that next level. So one of the things we use a lot is the SAMR model framework, which I'm not sure if you're familiar of it, but it's definitely having that framework, having that model that faculty can wrap their heads around that really emphasizes putting your goals first and just taking those small steps to transforming your classroom to innovate the use with technology can be really helpful. A couple other things we did were we started tablet breakfast. At first they were lunches, and that's the picture of Audrey Hepburn as tablet breakfast. Just kind of a fun play on films there. And it was very informal. We would meet in either faculty dining room or cafe, and it was just all around come with your devices, come with your questions. We would have a couple apps in mind or specific things talked about if anyone didn't have anything, but it was mainly for faculty and staff to be able to ask their questions, to learn more, and to propose those questions of, I want to be able to do this, can I do it better on my mobile device? I want my students to do this. Is there any opportunities that they could do it this way using what they have? And it was a great opportunity to have those informal conversations. We also had workshops, and we had several workshops just within the school year that we would do, but we also had a collaborative workshop that we did that WPI had started, and we had joined theirs and hosted one on our campus, and it was iTeach, and it was great because it was faculty and it was technologists from all over that came, and we kept it free, and we shared resources and ideas, and it was a really great collaboration. It was wonderful to have others from many campuses to share their ideas and to hear what everyone was doing. We also had an Apple educator come on campus, and we were a little hesitant at first. We didn't want it to be an Apple a vendor spiel, but they did a really great job focusing on mobile technology in general and what are some opportunities that the iPad and apps can provide. So that was very helpful, and we had great feedback from faculty on that as well. And then we've also done classroom presentations that focus around mobile technology and how can it be, where specific departments, how can that be helpful within nutrition and going out into the real world and things along those lines.
So we've continued to explore it. We'll continue to assess it, which is really important. But we, at this point, would like to hear from you, for those of you that have stayed on the line, and see what kind of questions you have. So thank you.
So if you want to write any questions that you have in the chat, and I love Kim's idea of adding the Q there. And we can also take you out to our site and share some resources. So why don't I go ahead and do that while you're typing in your questions. Let me just screen share here. Can you give me a smiley face if you can see my screen? I just want to make sure we can see my shared desktop. Okay, great. So this is a resource space that we have, and it talks about some of our grants, and a lot of what we shared and some of the faculty member we talked about are on here, what their goals and their projects were. On here is the infographic that we had mentioned, and this just shares an overview of that first year of grants, what were the tools that they used, what were their goals, and a lot along the lines of what was our grant process. So Professor Elaine Davis shares again some of her tools using Study Blue, Dropbox, Evernote. We also had some polling and lecture capture features that we didn't talk about too much during this, but that was a big component in what she was doing as well. And Professor Lynn Parker and a lot of the resources she shared, and Professor Mark Cody and some of the resources and his goals. So that's there for reference as well. And there's also a link to our mobile blog. And on here you'll find a lot of really great resources. You'll find the policies that was created around mobile through the Mobile Task Force. So all of these are here for reference. And this just shares what we support. There's also, you have some of the app guides and resources here. We have our student apps that we love, and these are, again, our quick app guides that we have that students can download that we update. We have a mobile blog as well. So these, again, are just resources for you to feel free to take and use if they're helpful. I'm going to come back and let's see if there's any questions. So I'm not seeing any questions as of now.
One of the challenges that this certainly with mobile coming on campus, it has challenged our Wi-Fi network. And I don't know how many of you have also had issues with Wi-Fi, but we've had a networking study done because of it. And we are being proactive as much as possible. But it was, I think we were unprepared, quite honestly, for the number of mobile devices that were going to appear. So we're definitely trying to address that as well.
Absolutely, and that would be in the classroom in general with test taking and different things like that.